Her cloak and collar hid the gash his brother's blade made, but even her face was worse than he remembered. The flesh had gone pudding soft in the water and turned the color of curdled milk. Half her hair was gone, and the rest had turned as white and brittle as a crone's. Beneath her ravaged scalp, her face was shredded skin and black blood where she raked herself with her nails. But her eyes were the most terrible thing. Her eyes saw him, and they hated. Woo, that was deep. Ooh, okay. Ha. Well, anyway, welcome to the Black Dread. I am the Black Dread. I'm going to start you off with 3 words. Family, duty, honor. The Tully words. And today we are going to look at one of the most tragic and the most famous characters in House Tully, Miss Catelyn Tully Stark, aka the Hangwoman, aka Lady Stoneheart. So let's talk about how Catelyn Stark, or Catelyn Tully, whichever you want to refer to, I'm just going to call her Catelyn. Let's talk about how she got from being the lovable, friendly, gentle, and dutiful Catelyn Tully to the murderous, vengeful, evil, horrible Lady Stoneheart. And I want to ask 2 questions. When did she become Lady Stoneheart? Because some people disagree. And why didn't we get to see her in Game of Thrones? So let's do a little brief examination of Catelyn Tully's history. Now, the way Catelyn's story plays out in A Song of Ice and Fire is pretty much the same way you see it on Game of Thrones, the TV show. And just quick brief history, we have Catelyn Tully. She's in love with Brandon Stark, the good Stark, the handsome, wild, charismatic one. He goes off and gets killed by the Mad King. So she's left with Ned Stark, the plain white bread mayonnaise version of Brandon Stark. But, family, duty, honor. So she marries him anyway, unlike Lyanna Stark, shade. But, so she marries him anyway. And then we know Ned Stark, they have their 5 kids. Ned Stark goes off to King's Landing and gets his head cut off. So that's like one of the first major losses Catelyn has to suffer. Now let's keep in mind too her state of mind, because when we talk about at what point did she become Lady Stoneheart, we have to remember where her state of mind is and at what point she stopped being Catelyn and started becoming Lady Stoneheart. So, she suffers the loss of Ned. That's bad, that's tragic, but she's still Catelyn Tully. She's still in there. She's got her kids, and she's got Robb, who's now going off to war. So she's down now in the Whispering Woods with Robb. She's hoping for him to be victorious, and of course he's victorious. Robb kidnaps Jaime Lannister. So all of the things we see season 1, 2, and 3, pretty much, with a few variations, it's pretty much the same as the way it goes through in A Song of Ice and Fire. We have Robb Stark, doing what he did was marry the Jane Westerling woman. Now, here's, Catelyn Stark. Now, again, she's trying to put her life back together, put her family back together. She's got Theon Greyjoy over at Winterfell, who killed her 2 young children. Now, we all know that Theon did not kill them. However, Catelyn is in her mindset that, okay, so Ned is dead and Bran and Rick are not dead. And who knows where Arya is, even though Peter is telling her he's safe. Who knows where Arya is? No one has seen or heard from her. And Sansa is stuck, betrothed to the insane lunatic that is Joffrey Baratheon. So Catelyn is, her mind is there. She's hanging on by a thread. And we get up to the point where everything changes for her. And everything pretty much here changes for the story too. We get to the event known as the Red Wedding. Now let's think about Catelyn's state of mind as she's going into the Red Wedding. Husband, first one that she wanted, Brandon, dies. So being family, duty, honor, she has to marry the one she doesn't really like. Even though she fell in love with him, it was kind of like, I'm forced to. So, she already has that. Then he gets his head cut off. Then we have 1 son dead, 2 sons dead, 1 daughter missing, 1 daughter kidnapped. And now we have her last hope for her, just a little bit of happiness. And her last shred of sanity is her young son, or her oldest son, but now he's, still kind of young man, Robb with the 2 B's, Robb Stark. Walking into the Red Wedding, Catelyn's state of mind, she's already hanging on by a thread. So she's appearing to be like, I'm doing my duty and I'm Catelyn Stark and I'm going to come and talk to Walder Frey. But inside her head, her mind is like, I can't take it. No more trauma, please. I can't take any more. So she's like, okay, holding on. This is fine. This is what life is like. This is what I signed up for. This is fine. So we get to the Red Wedding now. And she's sitting there. And they've got her with like Roose Bolton and the Raymond Frey and all these people. And she's just like, okay, this is not that bad. This is not that bad. But then she's like in the Song of Ice and Fire, everything, because we get to spend time with Catelyn and her thoughts throughout the book because she's a POV character. So we get to see and hear and understand exactly what she's feeling. And during the Red Wedding, she's just noticing like pounding music. Every time the song changes, she notices, okay, this is a different song and this is that song. So they're playing the music. She's really she notices it and it's driving her crazy. I just want to hurry up and get out of here. I don't like this feeling. I have this bad feeling. I don't like being around too many Freys and I don't really know what's going on, but let me just get this done and get out of here. Okay, so they take Edmure out to bed his wife, the bedding. So they take her away. And then that's when they close the doors. And Catelyn's like, that's interesting. They're closing the doors, but okay, whatever. And then that's when everything starts to change. The mood in the room changes. And like I said, Catelyn, she's very aware of the music. So when she starts to hear the Rains of Castamere, she's like, where have I heard this song before? Oh, wait a minute. I know. This is the song that people hear right before they die. So she's immediately like, okay, wait a minute. Something's going wrong here. So now we see what happens at the Red Wedding. Immediately, she starts, okay, my mind is like, it's starting to, fracture right now. I can't take any more of this. So now the arrows come out from the band. So now she's getting shot with arrows and Rob's getting shot with arrows. And then she sees like all of her people who are supposed to be there protecting her. Like here's Great John Umber. He gets his head cut off. And even little Daisy Mormont gets stuck with an axe. And all the Manderleys, all of her people are getting killed around her. She's just like, okay. So this is happening. Now, Catelyn's state of mind at this point now is just like 10 seconds away from fracturing. This is where my opinion differs from other people, because some people will let you believe that Lady Stoneheart came to be after she received the kiss from the Lord of Light, which is not what I think. I'm going to tell you why. Let's go over it. So now here she is. Roose Bolton, she's begging, Lord Walder, let it end. He's my son, and then she grabs Aegon, who's also known as Jingle Bell, not really Walder Frey's wife, because, I was there at the Red Wedding. I have a, eyewitness. She grabs Jingle Bell and she's like, the same thing. She's like, I will cut his throat. But in her mind, she's already like thinking, because we can hear her, like, again, we can hear her thoughts and her feelings. She's like, okay, I'm going to have to kill Walder Frey, because she already assumes that Rob is dead. Everyone's dead. She's like, okay, the least thing I can do is kill Walder Frey. Now, at that moment, she's not thinking, how can I save Rob? She's thinking, how can I kill Walder Frey? That is like, these are the last thoughts that's going through Catelyn's mind, her rational mind. These are the last thoughts. I have to kill this Walder Frey. So then Roose Bolton rolls up to Rob, and he says something different than he said in the on the show Game of Thrones. In the book, he says Jaime Lannister sends his regards, and then he gets him with the sword, and that was like one of the last things she heard. Jaime Lannister sends his regards. Now in the book, immediately that's where I feel like that was the switch in Catelyn, because her next thought, instead of like, oh my God, Rob is dead, her next actual thought after the knife goes into Rob is feeling of the sword sawing down into Aegon's neck, and the blood, she just kept cutting it till she felt bone, and the blood just rushing down, and she can see the blood on her hands. And she's even saying things like, that tickles, when the blood is dripping down her hands, and she's like, that kind of tickles, So at this point, Catelyn is going mad, and even people in there in the Red Wedding, the other phrases like, yo, she's going crazy, because she you see that scream she does that, but much, much more horrific. Like after she kills Aegon and then she's got the blood and she's like, ah, and she screams, but that was the scream of, ah, okay. And you know what? Everything's fine. I'm totally under control. I just have a bunch of people I have to kill now. And I believe that at that moment, she became Lady Stoneheart. She completely disassociated with Catelyn. She is no longer thinking rational. And for those few minutes, Lady Stoneheart was alive and well with us. Now, let me give you this example. Can you imagine Catelyn Stark and Ned Stark home in Winterfell? Imagine none of this ever happened. Ned never got cold. Jon Arryn never died. Ned never goes to Winterfell. And Rickon is 15 years old. They're old and laying together in bed. And something happens with Catelyn. And she dies. She gets sick. And she's got all her children around her. And Sansa, we love you, Mom. And Ned is like, I love you, Catelyn. You're going to go off into the Godswood and be with your father. And it's going to be all right. And she dies. And then something happens. For whatever reason, she's brought back to life. How would she come back to life? She would come back to life a more exaggerated version of herself. So she would come back with, Ned, I'm back and I'm alive and I love you all and I will never let anyone keep us apart. So she would come back as Catelyn Tully, but, as she was when she died. She wouldn't come back as this crazy, like, okay, now I have this I want to get vengeance on the pox that killed me. She wouldn't come back a completely different person. She would come back to life the person she was at the moment of her death. So that's why I believe at the moment of her death, she was literally Lady Stoneheart, because she even says a few things that are kind of crazy. Like, she mentioned the blood. Oh, that kind of tickles. And then she starts like the story that we heard in the beginning, the nails. She's just scratching her skin. She's just, now I can't even imagine what it would be like to lose a child and lose a child on top of the trauma that she suffered and in the way that she just lost them. So she's scratching her skin and they're like, oh, wow, she's going crazy, So then they're like, just put an end to it. So here comes Raymond Frey. He comes behind her and he goes to grab her head. And this is what she says. Don't cut my hair. Ned likes my hair long. So it's like, she's so far gone at this point that she doesn't, one, even realize she's about to be murdered. And two, she's like, Ned likes my hair long. It's like, Ned, who doesn't even have a head anymore. So the dude kills her. Or so we thought. So here's what the Freys do. A day and a half, they keep her body and she's just naked and they have her body there and they're sewing Rob's direwolf head. They're just doing all of these really disrespectful things. They're desecrating her corpse. It's like, they really want people to know, like they're trying to instill fear into their enemies. And it's like, if anything, you ever cross the Freys, this is what's going to happen to you. So a couple of days later, in the House Tully, when you have a funeral, like if you saw in Game of Thrones on the show, when you have a funeral, very respectful. They put the body on the water and push it out with the Tully flag and shoot an arrow and burn it, because you definitely don't want, sea creatures eating the body. But, you send it out into the water and burn it. It's very respectful and everyone's there. Holster Tully, that's how we saw his funeral. So they're going to decide, the phrase is like, we're going to give her a Tully funeral. So they strip her body naked after she's been dead for 3 days and roll her into the water. That's her Tully funeral. So what happens to her? Little Miss Arya is a warg. Did you know that? A lot of people only think that Bran has these first man green seeing abilities, but a lot of the Stark children have powers. So right after the Red Wedding, now Arya was close there. She was there with the Hound. She was very close. After the Red Wedding, Arya's sleeping and she can't sleep. Mom, I love you and I miss you. Mom, I can't sleep. So while she's sleeping, she wargs into her direwolf Nymeria. You remember Nymeria? She's still out there in the wild and she's still connected to Arya, even though they're not together. The Starks and the direwolf have a much more mystical, magical connection than we've ever got to see. So she is connected to Nymeria. She wargs into Nymeria, and Nymeria's now she's padding through the woods and she sees the body and she's like, oh shit, that's my mom, So Nymeria, Arya in the wolf body, pulls her out of the water and is like, like Mom, and licking her face and everything. But then she hears people coming, so she rushes off. And Arya wakes up and like, wow, I could have sworn that was so real. I could almost taste blood in my mouth. But the people who were coming, dun, 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 the band of brothers, including Thoros of Myr and Beric Dondarrion. Who is Beric Dondarrion? Well, it just so happens to be a person who can bring people back to life. How convenient was that? You know what I'm saying? So they're with, the band of brothers. They're looking around and they see this body and dude is like, one of the people who were with him is from the north. And he's like, oh, snap, that's Catelyn Stark. You know what I'm saying? He's like, yo, Thoros, do the spell, save her. And Thoros is like, oh, no, I can't do the spell. She's been dead too long. Because if you ever see Thoros of Myr do the spell, he does it when Beric dies. He goes immediately, the night is dark and full of terrors. He starts doing the spell right in his ear. But this has been 3 days. And he's like, oh, she's been dead too long. Every time Beric Dondarrion comes back to life, he loses a little bit of himself, a little bit of his memory, like he can't remember certain things. He's not exactly the same. And it's like, she's been laying there for 3 days. She's not going to be the woman you know. She's not coming back. I really think Thorismir didn't want to do the spell on her because he looked at her body and saw that gross milk curdled body in the skin. He probably was like, "Oh, I'm not giving that lady the kiss of nothing." You know what I'm saying? Circle, circle, dot, dot. Now I got my cootie shot. But Beric Dondarrion, he was like, "I will take care of it. I'll save her." And he goes down to her and he gives her the kiss of the Lord of Light. Axio sonio ilo misas. Ao sonio. And he gives it to her. The night is dark and full of terrors, and his life passes through him and into Catelyn, and she arises. And the first thing she says is, "Where's the phrase?" I mean, no, she can't really talk and everything, but that's literally, the first thing she does when she gets up is, "I'm alive." And they're like, "Oh, wow, she's back to life. Oh, snap. What will you have us do?" And kill the phrase, because, they cut her throat so deep she can't really talk. So when she does, it's very, very painful. So she's just shrouded in mystery. She's got a hood on and they just walking around with her. So now the band of brothers who used to be job is to, get rid of Gregor Clegane and his people, the Lannister people during Robert's reign, the last few days of Robert's life. That's what the band of brothers was out there doing. Now they have a new mission. They're out hunting Freys. They're out hunting Lannisters. They're trying to get vengeance for the Red Wedding. I'm like, I'm 100% with you. Now, you see, when Catelyn woke up, she didn't wake up. Well, when she was resurrected, she did not become resurrected as, "I'm so sad. I'm Catelyn and I've been dead for all these days and I miss my children." The last thing she remembers was being Lady Stoneheart. She was thinking, "I see Robb there dead, but how can I get to him?" And the feel of blood of killing this little jingle bell, little simpleton, grandson of all the Frey. She just snatches and she kills him. She's like, "Oh, the blood was so warm and actually tickled my arm." So that was the last thing she remembered. She did not just become Lady Stoneheart when Beric Dondarrion gave her the kiss of life. She was Lady Stoneheart with us, alive at the Red Wedding for maybe a few minutes. She was alive and just like foaming in the mountain of vengeance. She was like that. So now what happens? She gets up and they come across Peter Pimple, which is his name, Peter Pimple. So he was super handsome. He's one of the Freys. So they get him and kidnap him and they send a message to the Freys. "Oh, we've got Peter and we're going to, we want to ransom him." So Walder Frey and them, they can't imagine that as payback for the Red Wedding. So they're just thinking, "Oh, well, because we are lords of Riverrun and the Trident now, someone has kidnapped one of our heirs." That happens, when you're rich, things like that, you tend to get kidnapped. So they're like, "Okay, well, he's kidnapped." And here's where we meet our friend Merritt Frey. Merritt Frey, the supremely unintelligent Merritt Frey. This is the brother of Black Walder and Raymond, and his daughter is the one who Roose Bolton married, Fat Walder. There's so many Freys that it's hard to keep track, so I just try to remember, just a few of the close relations. So this one is married, is the father of Fat Walder, the one that Roose Bolton married. So Merritt Frey. Now he had a job to do at the wedding, the Red Wedding. Everybody had their job. Merritt Frey's job was to take Great John Umber and drink him under the table, because they know when the beep hits the fan, the first person who's going to be in there catching wreck was going to be Great John Umber. So they said, "Okay, Merritt, here's what you do. You drink him under the table. You make sure he stays drunk. So when we the stuff start jumping off, he's going to be like, 'Ah, I'm drunk.'" They not ready for the North, because Great John Umber, not only did he drink Peter Pimple under the table, he drank Merritt Frey under the table. And when the beep hit the fan, Great John Umber got up and he was still drunk, and he still took out about 3 or 4 people. He took somebody's arm off of somebody's ear. He killed people before they got him down in chains. So now Merritt's like, "Okay, well, let me see if I can make up for this, because we know Walder Frey's going to die soon. And I'm like a 9th son. So as soon as the heir Raymond Frey becomes Lord of the Twins, he's going to get rid of all of us useless Freys. So if I can be the one and come back with Peter Pimple alive and I saved him, it's like, okay, maybe when Walder dies, I won't get kicked out on the street and be sitting somewhere like, will kill for food. Help me please, I'm starving." He won't be doing that. So I will go save Peter Pimple. Give me the money and I'll go rescue him. Okay, go rescue him. So here he goes, and I'm going to rescue Peter Pimple, and they get him there, and he's like, okay, he comes to the outlaws. It's like, "Here's the gold, free Peter Pimple." It's like, "Oh, okay, we'll take you to him, but first let me have that gold first." And he's like, "Okay, well, he still doesn't really understand the gravity of the situation because he can't imagine this is a red wedding thing because he's like, who knows about the red wedding? If you're dead or you're on our side. So he's there, and now they're like, oh, he's like, well, you took my money. Well, where's my cousin? He's like, oh, was it Tom Sevenstrings, who's the fiddler? He's playing, oh, here, because he sings everything. So, here is your cousin right here. Oh, he's already dead hanging from a tree. And Barrett's like, yo, that was not the part of the agreement. You said if I gave you the money, you would give back, my little pimply faced cousin. They're like, well, we never kind of really said it. And if we did, guess what? We're lying. And he's like, well, don't do anything to me. I'm married free and I've got children. And they're like, well, the young wolf had kids too. Or we could have had kids, or he's never going to have kids now. And they're like, the young wolf, he's like, uh-oh. But he's like, okay, all right, so I see what this is. This is about the red wedding. He's like, but if I know anything about Beric Dondarrion, he's not going to kill anyone without a trial or without them being found guilty because, the Lord of Light, he has to have either trial by combat or something, you have to be found guilty. So he's like, nobody was alive to see me at the red wedding. I wasn't there. It wasn't me. You can't prove it. Nobody got no Snapchat footage of me at the red wedding. So what you gonna do? And here comes Miss Lady Stoneheart. She comes walking, shrouded in mystery. She's covered up, big cloak covering the gash. And Merritt's like, oh, snap. Now, again, Merritt Frey, real stupid, immediately starts telling on himself. Oh, wow, it can't be her. She's dead. My brother killed her. He put a knife through her throat. We took her clothes off. We shoved her body in the water. Oh, I get it. I'm going to die. That's what he's like, oh, wow, you know what? And everyone's just behind him like, dude, shut up. Shut up. So he's like, Tom Sevenstrings is like, okay, here, do me a favor. If you tell us something, I'll tell them to let you go. And Lady Stoneheart's just there, just letting them play this game out. And then he's like, have you seen a person they call the Hound? He may have had a 10-year-old girl with him, or maybe a 10-year-old boy. Arya, we know she might be looking for Arya. He's like, no, I've never seen him. He says, all right, up you go. And they hang him. He's like, wait a minute. You guys said he was going to let me go, and there's nobody can prove it. Hey, Miss Stoneheart, they're like, was he there? And she gave him, and showing up, up, down, yep, kill him, yes, no. And she's like, showing up from the Last Dragon. She's like, yes, thumbs down, he's got to go. And they're like, well, up you go. And hang Merritt Frey. And he's dead now. And now Lady Stoneheart, she's like, okay, I like this. I'm trying to get me some more vengeance. So they moving through the Trident, they moving through the River Run. They come across Raymond Frey, who's been exiled from the River Run camp. Jaime kicked him out because he's just whoring and stupid. So Jaime kicks him out, and Raymond Frey's walking through, and he comes across Lady Stoneheart, and he's hung immediately. This happens off camera, so we don't really know the 100% of the details about Raymond Frey. I just know that he's dead, and I'm glad. So he's dead now. So there's still more people, because the last thing she heard, Jaime Lannister sends his regards. She wants him so badly. She wants him now. Why Ruth said that, we'll get to that another time. But she wants him. So who does she come across now in her travels? Brienne of Tarth. Brienne of Tarth. So she's like, this is what's funny about Brienne, because she's all on this holy mission to find Sansa, even though Catelyn is dead. But Catelyn doesn't know that. She don't understand that. She's Lady Stoneheart. She's not thinking rationally. So they have Brienne kidnapped. She's got Podrick with her, and she's got someone else. She's not really kidnapped, but they got her. And she's like, oh, when she sees her, she comes back, and his Lady Stoneheart, she comes out. She's like, oh, wow, Lady Stark, you're alive, and I'm so happy. And she's just like, she can't really talk, but they like, she don't fuck with you no more. So if I was you, I'd stop trying to cop a plea. It's like, but I didn't do anything. Holding Jaime's sword. I'm really not working with Jaime. Wearing Jaime's armor. I swear I'm not on a mission from the king. Holding a letter of mission statement from the king. So it's like, Brienne, you look real guilty right now. If I was you, I'd shut up. And Lady Stoneheart, she's no memory of Catelyn. I'm like, I don't know nothing about what agreement we made. If we was girls and we was laughing and giggling and everything. I don't know anything about that right now. All I know is that you're covered from head to toe in Jaime Lannister gear. You were sleeping. You kept saying his name, Jaime. She's like, okay, so you really with him. So up you go too. So now there's Podrick. She's got Podrick hanging, and she sees his feet dangling. Brienne, so stupid, waits all the way up until they get all of them hung up, and she's being hung, and she's like, you can say one word. You can either say sword, which means you'll take that sword that he gave you and you will bring me to Kingslayer, or noose, and you can die right here. So, of course, she waits all the way up until last minute, and then she screams one word, and the chapter cuts off. But we know that word was sword, because next thing we see is Brienne rolling up on Jaime. She's like, you know, when somebody lying, they can't really look in the eye. She's like, I found Sansa and I need you to come with me to get her because I can't, for some reason, get her myself. I need you. Can I send Lannister men? No. It's got to be you. I need you to come with me to get Sansa. And now we come to the most fascinating part of Lady Stoneheart's story. It is fascinating because that's where it ends. We don't know what happens now. We have not received the transcribed scrolls known as the Winds of Winter. We definitely have not received anything close to A Dream of Spring. So that's where we are right now. Lady Stoneheart is out there for vengeance. She's got a hold of Brienne. Now, here's the funny thing about Brienne, because when she leaves some Lady Stoneheart, she can just be like, man, F this, I'm going back to Tarth. I don't know what she's doing. I don't want no parts. I'm going back to Tarth, get married, and call it a day. But it's my honor, and I gave a vow. So she told me to go get Jaime. I have to go get Jaime now. We know she kind of feeling Jaime. So let's see how this really plays out. But that's the thing. We don't really know how it plays out. We have speculation. We can speculate. Now, from what I heard, you know, my travels during Westeros, I heard that there is going to be something along the lines of a red wedding. But for the phrase, like how we saw Arya kill all of them at once, I think something like that is going to happen with Brienne forcing Jaime to do it and Lady Stoneheart in the back, like, you know, doing her weird laugh. I think all the Freys get killed at once because there's so many of them. You're never going to be able to go get each and every one of them. She's got a few of the main ones, but you're never going to be able to get all of the Freys. So I feel like somewhere in the Winds of Winter, all of the Freys are going to meet with a real ugly end. And I can't wait for that. So now I want to ask a question. Why didn't we get to see any of this? Why was Lady Stoneheart left out the book? Well, direct quote from George R.R. Martin, Lady Stoneheart has a role in the books. Whether it's sufficient or interesting enough, I think it is, or I wouldn't have put her in. One of the things I wanted to show with her is the changes that she has suffered through death. So he was really invested in Lady Stoneheart. He's got something planned for her in Winds of Winter, and he felt like it should have been part of the story. Now, why did my good friends David Benioff and David Weiss decide that they weren't going to put her in? Well, let's find out. Michelle, the woman who plays Catelyn, is such a great actress. To bring her back as a zombie who doesn't talk felt like diminishing returns. So they didn't want to bring her back because she's such a wonderful actress that if she came back in a role and didn't speak, the fans would not like it. The character fans most clamored to see was the one who had only a couple of cryptic appearances in the book, Lady Stoneheart. At the end of A Storm of Swords, Catelyn Stark was resurrected from her red wedding fate as a silent undead specter of vengeance. This reveal is one of the most shocking moments of the book. But we didn't feel like, she came back as a character that didn't speak. We didn't feel like it was going to be, it's going to have diminishing returns. Okay, so we see what happened there. In other words, D&D, David Benioff and Weiss decided, I'm going to tell my story the way I want, and I don't care what you fans want. We're going to give you the little BS version of Dorne, and we're going to give you the White Walker chase beyond the wall. So stupid. Oh, gosh, it's so stupid. So that is where we are with Lady Stoneheart. All we can do now is just wait. So what we have to do now, we just have to wait for Grand Maester Martin to transcribe those scrolls called the Winds of Winter and get them over to me. So let's just all say a prayer. To the drowned God, what is dead may never die. To the Lord of Light, the night is dark and full of terrors. To the many-faced God, Valar Morghulis. To the old gods and the new, father, mother, smith, warrior, crone, stranger, maiden. May Grandmaster George R.R. Martin, be healthy. Let's guide those fingers of his to the keyboard, and let's get those scribes out into the bookstore so we can get them here. Let's hope that he gets those books to us in time for me to enjoy them and love them and bring them to you. I'm the Black Dread. This is the Black Dread. I'll see you next time. Family, honor, duty.